This morning before I left, I looked out over the lake and I watched the rain gently dance on the surface of the lake. Where does the lake begin and the rain end? We call this thing that we do a path. Where does it begin? Where does it end? Gone to the other shore. At last there is nirvana. Where did we go? Sometimes well, quite often actually, I get concerned that my words are misleading. It's a conundrum because I have to give a Dharma talk. So where does it begin and where does it end? It wasn't just the rain this morning. As I drove here, the leaves were also falling, and they were everywhere. Quite beautiful, actually. It was like a lattice work of leaves across all the road, all the way over. So we don't cry for the fallen leaves. And there's natural rhythms in our own lives that we cry about because we want things to stay the same. So where does it begin and where does it end? We shouldn't get fooled by the name, the term, or any terms for that matter, a path, implying that there's a road that you're traveled on. There's just one mind, but we can't describe that. We can't define it. We can't put it into terms that we can understand. The nicest thing for me in sitting practice is just this, just here, right now, sitting with all of it. And what is that? That suchness, that experience of just this. Uh, to me, that's the other shore. Remember, and most everything you're experiencing is a projection of your own mind. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's the identification with it. That's where your suffering begins, right there. I see this world like this. Suffering. The world is like that. Suffering. Just this. nirvana. So those are all just words, and I don't expect to actually be able to relate anything to you other than just say that we're in this together in such a complete and whole way that there is no distance between us. So there's many ways to explain it, to try to identify it, to try to make it into something, to try to convince the world to be the way we see it. But it's just this. Maybe so, maybe not. So I've never been very identified with my name. I've had lots of different names. And I never really identified with it. You know, it's a label that people call me and I respond to it. But I don't have an ego attachment to a name. I am Will. I don't even imagine, I can't imagine that anybody does, but maybe they do. I don't know. But just from my experience, I don't have that. So Dharma names are wonderful for that reason, because they either talk about an attribute that you already have or something that you're going to have that's in your path, so to speak, in your presence, you may not have fully evolved and developed it yet, but it's there. It's who you are. So those are wonderful things, Dharma names. So my Dharma name is Heian, and Heian means ocean eyes or ocean eye. All right. Any thoughts about raindrops? How about just sitting? When you sit, what's your experience? Is it just regurgitating our projections? Or do we put that down and just keep putting it down and keep putting it down? And then what's left?
My experience today was of sort of a Legos.
Legos?
Yeah, that I felt very disjointed. And so I could feel the Legos, the things being put back into place.
Yes.
I have the vision of those robots that sort of, and then just sort of, and that was what I was experiencing today. And I was very grateful for that.
Yeah.
Because it's been a very disjointed sort of few weeks.
Yeah, that's a nice image. Having things put back together. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how long they'll stay there, but at that moment, I felt like.
I was reminded this morning of a time I was practicing, and I had this image of a transparent Buddha. It was complete, there was a shape of the Buddha, but was completely transparent. And so that transparency is kind of part of what I'm really grateful for when I get to a place where I'm transparent. What?
It's this recurring thing. It's like, what the hell am I doing? What is this? That's what I feel. That's what I experience when I'm sitting. Is like, oh, here we go again. What? What is this? What's this compulsion? Why are you doing this again?
Uh-huh.
It's always been all the time I've been sitting.
Interesting.
it's not particularly edifying or relaxing or anything, but it's still there. It's just there. What is this?
Good. It's a great question. What is this?
I'm next, yes.
Yeah.
Um, well, I think I can only really speak to today's sit. I think I think that like if in the present there might be some notion about sitting,
Mhm.
and in the moment it could be that you know, I feel somehow exalted, or my body's vibrating with
Mm.
yeah,
Mm.
yum.
Mm.
And so that would be my version of sitting. And then other days where there's nothing but content in there, then that would be the version of sitting. Well, I'm sitting here and I'm struggling and I'm trying to
Yeah.
make this thing happen. Or make something happen, you know. But today's experience has been kind of like I suppose there a bit of regurgitation and stepping away from it, and then regurgitating and stepping away from it. It's like being on a boat, you know. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and just I suppose a lot of run-of-the-mill, repetitious concerns, worries, stresses. Um, you know, not knowing what's around the corner,
Yes.
and then making some attempt or intention to return and just like let that go, you know.
Yes. So, yeah. So none of these, there's nothing right or wrong, of course, right? But all the ways we describe what our experience is a story about how we're processing what's happening. So it tells us something about ourselves. So when we walk away from our sit, that's when things really start to happen. Because now we can analyze what happened while we were sitting. But there's something else that happened while we were sitting that is beyond our analyzing, beyond our ability to put it into any sort of category. It's more of I'll put it into a heart, mind, feeling experience or energy where something has shifted in our energy pattern after our sit so that something is different. And it's usually what's different is it's all about letting go. So it's like tension. So there might be a little less tension, or there could be more tension because you're holding on so tightly. And again, that's just your experience that you need to go through. So what are you holding on to? You know, so there's these things that happen because of our practice, because we're becoming, taking some, as Nick said, some distance from our lives to be able to see, oh, okay, this is where I'm hanging out right now. And this is what I'm experiencing. But I'm trying to say, well, through that to the other side is nirvana. Through this experience, there's the other side, which is not really the other side. Okay. This is just the way we're trying to explain it. But it's, the whole concept of non-attachment is so interesting because we can say that and we can intellectualize it, but when it comes right down to it, we wrap ourselves up in this egg, this ego. And it's really hard to break through it to where it's not. So if our ego can be just like I'm describing my name, it's just, it's it has no identity, actually. It has no form, actually. It has no reality, actually. But it's what we make it. And I'm not suggesting that this is some sort of thing that a process that we need to go through. It's just about letting go. Just keep letting go and having a mind that's clear like space so that you're not holding on to those ideas or those emotions or those feelings so tightly. It's not to have them, have them. I loved when my teacher used to say, nothing wrong with desires. It's the attachment to them. So where does it begin and where does it end?